to RCast, the official podcast of the RChain Cooperative. RChain is a complete, concurrent blockchain platform designed for maximum efficiency at minimal computational and environmental costs by utilizing proof of stake. Beyond our platform, our investment partner, Reflective Ventures, funds organizations that are working within our core mission statement to create a better world by enabling social coordination in robust, secure, and scalable ways. I'm Derek Barris, the Director of Content for RChain. Each week on RCast, I'll be talking with the founders of our portfolio companies, as well as co-op members, staff, and other figures in the RChain ecosystem about the most pressing issues in blockchain today. Please check out rchain.coop to learn more about the platform, our community, validator sale, and information on becoming a member. One of the most frustrating aspects of healthcare in America is trying to obtain and transfer your records. At this point in our technological development, it feels that we should have all of our medical data in one place, easily transferable from physician to physician. Yet the process is nothing like that. The bureaucratic layers necessary to transfer data from one hospital, physician, or clinic to another can take weeks. The extra costs are passed along to the patient in terms of time and attention. When the goal is supposed to be healing, there's got to be a better way. Kamran Khan founded Translo after his father experienced an L4-L5 herniation. Kamran was a recent Harvard graduate in biology and was working at Massachusetts General Hospital conducting clinical research on spinal surgery outcomes. While doing research, he noticed that even at one of the top research institutions, the process was not patient-centric, nor was it efficient in terms of cost, time, or risk. Translo was born. Translo is solving the problem of lack of collaboration in biomedical research through creating interoperability, incentives, and a mechanism for sharing data on a decentralized, transparent, and auditable biomedical data exchange platform. The company's goal is to cure the pain points in collaboration by automating the complexity of biomedical research and create benefits across time, cost, and risk in data sharing. Kamran became interested in blockchain years ago while investing in cryptocurrencies. Only after his experience in research did he recognize the potential for leveraging this technology to make the healthcare process more patient-centric, which, when you think about it, is what healing should be. Like other RChain portfolio companies, Encrypt and HelloFriend, Translo is based at Harvard's Innovation Lab. In fact, one collaborative project born late last year was with Encrypt, in which Translo will be using that platform's technology for the data sharing process. It's a very exciting time in healthcare. As with last week's RCast with WitNet, this podcast was recorded last year by Blind Acre, so I'll be commenting on the questions that Kamran was asked, and then you'll hear his responses from there. Make sure to check out the platform at translo.io, Translo.io, and you can also check out the company on LinkedIn and on Twitter. To begin, Kamran talks about the origins of Translo at Harvard's Innovation Lab.
Yeah, so I live in Cambridge, and Translo, our company, it's based out of Harvard iLab also. It's a great spot for whether you need to access advisors in the industry or you need to access advisors in academia. So it's obviously a great working space. You have 24-hour access, and they mentor you. They pair you up with advisors, so they sort of walk you through startup process, whether it's coming up with your pitch decks or VCs and things like that. Yeah, and I think you'll be hearing about 3 companies, Encrypt and HelloFriend, a couple of others. They're based in iLab also.
Next, he discusses his relationships with the other portfolio companies, Encrypt and HelloFriend.
Salman is actually my roommate. So for HelloFriend, Farhan I've known for 4 years, actually week 1 of college for him. We're both Pakistani origin, so we have a couple of societies that we're part of. So I met him at a Harvard South Asian Association event, and then since then we've bonded over, our love for politics in general.
Now Cameron talks about how he discovered blockchain.
I've been involved in the blockchain space for 2 years now also. And initially, it was sort of just really initially when we were buying like Ethereum at $7 or so, it was more from, hey, let's make some money. But last year, through like personal investments and things like that, I really got to know the underlying technology blockchain and how it had that disruptive nature to sort of reevaluate or reshape how society does business or conducts or manages patients or creates that partnership. So really got to know blockchain well. And, I've been part of blockchain conferences. I've actually spoken a couple even before launching Translo, was a judge at a couple of competitions. So things like that. And that was one actually when I met Shahan and Reflective Ventures last April when Reflective was having a conference here at Harvard. And we were talking about the legalities, the legal issues surrounding ICOs and surrounding what is a security token, what is a utility token. So that's when I was moderating a panel and Shahan was a panelist. So we had a really good conversation around that topic. It's just not about Reflective Ventures, giving us funding. It's more about a strategic partnership. And that's one of the things that I'm really excited about and I really love about Reflective is this co-op model that, hey, we not only give you funding, but we also incubate you, make sure, you know the space where you have the resources available to you to succeed, whether it's from getting you, top-notch developers or getting you, your digital strategy right or your marketing strategy right, or to introducing you to, or inviting you to conferences so you can get your word out there. It's not traditional sort of VC ecosystem that they have. That leads to trust. That leads to sort of open communication. Because if I know that I can be genuine and if I have sincere concern, I can talk to, Reflective Ventures. If I have that trust, then that can lead towards together making decisions that are right for the company instead of just saying that, I hide things or I concerns with the company saying like, oh, the VC doesn't need to know about it, which is sort of the traditional VC model. So I love that they're flipping the VC model on its head. Same thing, I think it's within blockchain, what blockchain is doing, they're doing same thing with funding.
And it's here that he discusses the mission and the values at Translo.
So I graduated 2 years ago from Harvard with a master's degree in biology. And then I started doing research as a bioengineer at Massachusetts General Hospital in orthopedic surgery. I joined because my father, he had L4, L5 disc herniation, and I was doing research on the diagnosis and treatment for that. And I saw the treatment for that specific diagnosis was a fusion surgery. And the fusion surgery had a high reoperation rate, 36% reoperation rate within 5 years. So as I got interested in this topic, I started doing research in this officially as a bioengineer at Massachusetts General Hospital. I had this notion that MGH is constantly ranked #1. So, this research process must be the most efficient thing. We'll be using most cutting edge technologies possible. But I got to learn the truth really the hard way and pretty soon. So during this process, I saw that our research ecosystem isn't patient-centric and it's not efficient in cost, time, or risks. So what I mean by that is specifically, we still did patient consent forms by hand and had to manage those and save those in binders and had to save those for 7 years because of HIPAA regulations. And also, we weren't able to collaborate with other hospitals or we weren't able to collaborate with other projects on a similar scope because there's a lack of interoperability between hospital systems. So electronic healthcare records, there's a problem of communication or searchability between them. So what I mean by that is within Boston alone, there are 26 different types of electronic healthcare records, and there's 17 hospitals. So that means that you have multiple electronic healthcare records within the hospital, and they're not searchable. So what that leads to is you can't actually recruit a lot of patients for a study. And if you can't recruit a lot of patients, then your study is not as powerful, so you can't have deeper insights. And I sincerely believe one of the reasons why this fusion surgery, we haven't found a better treatment for it or haven't improved the methodology is because the studies that are being published, and there's a lot of studies being published, every year, but they don't meet that thorough rigorness of research or that a threshold where you have 1,000 patients. So I was really frustrated with this lack of interoperability problem in electronic healthcare records. And then second of all, just the inefficiencies. We use so many multiple systems and so many third-party people to manage data. And there's no, even if, for example, if I knew personally someone else at Brigham and Women Hospital and they wanted to collaborate with us, there's not a secure, permissioned, efficient manner of sharing data. And these reasons, and along with others, while I was thinking about this, I started to realize like these problems were sort of meant for blockchain to solve. Like blockchain is a perfect tool for solving a lot of these problems. So I came up with the idea about Translo that, hey, let's create a powerful data sharing platform that allows you to actually share data between institutions, hospitals, biopharma companies, so you can collaborate on research. And then you can collaborate on research. And then because you have this data sharing in a secure, permissioned manner, we want to actually make this platform patient-centric. Right now, once we collect the healthcare data from patients, or patients come in and get their clinical data, hospital database, that data is being de-identified and being used for research purposes without patients' consent. And it's being actually sold to biopharma companies for millions of dollars. Last year alone, Pfizer bought healthcare data for $12 million, and that's just in Boston. So we really want to make this system, our research ecosystem, patient-centric, where patients hold the power. Yeah, so we launched Translo with this goal in mind, creating a patient-centric, powerful biomedical data sharing platform that allows you to collaborate, that allows you to share data together, see what kind of projects are going on. So initially, like I mentioned, there's not a specific place where you can go and see, oh, this person is doing this project. So we're actually creating incentives for people to actually share data, and we're creating trust and transparency in sharing data. So patients actually feel more empowered and patients actually feel engaged in the process so they can contribute towards the data. On top of this, our first decentralized application will be clinical trials. We really want to reshape and transform or reinvent, sort of say, our clinical trials ecosystem. There's so many inefficiencies that lead to higher drug prices and longer times from bench to actually a drug coming to market. And I think we can use the blockchain technology to actually transform how we conduct clinical trials. I'll just give you a couple of examples where blockchain comes in, and there's various. Number one thing is there's a lot of data being shared within a clinical trial. So when a clinical trial is happening, there's multiple sites, there's multiple PIs, so principal investigators at each site. Then you have sponsors, so like Novartis, Pfizer, and then you have regulatory authorities that are actually regulating all these. So there's a lot of players involved, but sharing the data that's being generated within a clinical trial, or sharing patient consent forms, or sharing protocols and a lot of critical documents within a clinical trial, it's a huge challenge. There's multiple systems that are being used right now, and it doesn't happen in real time. So actually these sponsors get other companies to do it, whether it's CROs who do this or specifically companies who just manage these clinical trials. So what we're saying is we will use blockchain transparency and the immutable ledger and actually just timestamp the data that's being collected and actually put these forms into the blocks. So then that creates a trail of documents that could be shared in real time. So then you can share data in real time. And also, as an effect of that, what happens is now you can find control, sort of the permissions, that who can have access to this, who cannot have access to this. If these conditions have met, then you can actually share this data or not. So that leads to this audit trail that saves a lot of time and millions of dollars for research organizations and clinic sponsors. So that ultimately, we're hoping if you create efficiencies in time, cost, and risk, and create a more efficient and patient-centric model for conducting clinical trials, that makes it easy to get patient consent, engages patients, empowers patients, because patients can actually now see, hey, these are the trials I'm applicable for. There's a lot of trouble patients actually have outside of the city seeing whether they can participate in a clinical trial or not. So they can identify hey, this clinical trial should be good for my diagnosis. So they can find that, and then they can share that data and get compensated for it. Because at the end of the day, it's their data. And we're seeing, going forward, it's not oil or it's not machinery that's sort of the gold of future. Data is. So healthcare data is being generated, and and it's being tripled, every year. So this is going to be the future, and we want patients to be in charge of that. And research shows if patients are in charge of their own data or their own health, and they're engaged in that process, that leads to better outcomes. Our vision is, creating this data sharing platform which allows collaboration, which solves the problem of interoperability, and then creating this decentralized clinical trials application that creates efficiencies in risk, time, and cost. So we want to thoroughly sort of reinvent the research ecosystem that can lead to better patient outcomes, have deeper insights into the research that's being conducted, and just overall bring the drugs to patients faster at a cheaper price.
Next up, he talks a bit about how he became involved with Reflective Ventures and RChain.
I think from the community perspective, we would like to, there's a lot of interesting projects being built on RChain specifically. So actually, let me back up and tell you a little bit why we chose to partner with RChain and Reflective Ventures. I talked about the community before, but the tech that RChain is building is really interesting. It's like saying, I would make the comparison, that why build on some of the traditional protocols out there that cannot scale well, instead of picking something, because we're envisioning a future or Web 3.0, we should be choosing a protocol that's 3.0, and that's what RChain is. RChain's tech talking about concurrency that allows you to actually scale easily when you have hundreds and thousands and millions of transactions happening. That's not something that other protocols can claim because they're sort of longitudinal. They can't have multiple transactions being recorded or multiple chains at the same time. So I really love that about RChain, that you can have concurrency, because we're a platform that's going to be, it's a big platform that's going to have a lot of transactions, thousands or hundreds of thousands of transactions happening constantly, whether it's sharing data, buying data, or using the clinical trials app to collect data or share that data and things like that, right? So, or patient management. So there's going to be a lot of transactions happening. So we need a protocol that scales very well, that's not going to have a lot of the problems that traditional protocols that we've seen so far in the past that have come out to have. So the effect would be, we will want to engage with the community and build partnerships and get some of the developers from RChain's community to help us build Translo. So we want to build Translo from day one, that it doesn't run into scalable problems or it doesn't run into bugs and things like that. And then second of all, RChain has, because of this tech that they're building, they have a lot of interesting and cool projects being built. So we would want to find synergies with some of those projects and actually partner up with them.
And finally, he talks about who the target customer for Translo is.
Our customers will be biopharma companies who will use our clinical trials application, and then the data sharing platform. That will be research institutes, hospitals, biopharma companies again, because we want to sort of target them and see that, hey, you can use this to actually collaborate on research and publish papers together for clinical trials. You can actually use our platform to save money, to save time, and actually share data in an efficient manner and get the patient involved in the process. I've been talking to a lot of pharma people, reps, and chief digital officer of Novartis, and they love that idea, getting the patient involved into the process. So I guess our customers would be, pharma companies, hospitals, research institutes, because right now we're focusing on clinical data, but we want to actually encompass other biological data, whether it's genetics, whether it's other genomics data, because once you have that, then you can collectively analyze that data and get to deeper insights from different perspectives. And our patient portal will actually it'll be IoT ready. You can connect biomedical wearable devices to it. So it's no longer just like a Fitbit era, right? You have glucose monitor. You can measure EKG of your heart through a sensor. So all that data could be put into a patient portal where the patient can see, okay, this is what my electronic healthcare records are for me. This is the data from what I'm eating, what my glucose levels are. And then that process gets the patient engaged into their own health, and that improves research outcomes.